are these people?
So, first story of tonight, unfortunately, I do not want to talk about this because I feel like this is just rinse, lather, repeat of similar stories over and over again. But at the same time, I feel this story will go under the radar if we don't talk about it. And I think it is important to kind of share. And especially since, we've been told by different people, Hussam, I believe his name was, who we talked about last week, his final words were, as a journalist, his final words were, don't stop talking about Gaza, So we plan to do that here. And this is kind of more of a continuation of the sacrifice that journalists are making in light of trying to share truth of the reality of what's happening in Gaza right now. So as I said earlier tonight, a journalist was burned to a crisp. I hate saying it that way, but he was burned in a fire 10 strike, as well as several other bystanders by the IDF on Monday. And so we do want to report on that, give you guys the know of that. But let's check out what The Guardian has to say about it, just to give you guys a little brief description, and then we'll get into more details of that. So, Reef, if you don't mind playing the short clip.
Nope.
So, those of you who are, actually, let's go back. Those of you who are listening, an Israeli airstrike hit a tank in Khan Yunis that was reportedly being used as a base for a number of journalists.
Oh, yep.
الساعة 3 الفجر 3 الصبح
At around 3 a.m. at dawn, we woke up to an explosion next to us. We all got out and saw out of our tents and saw a targeting of our journalist colleagues' tent. We will continue to deliver the message and convey the truth to the whole world. This is our humanitarian duty. Footage from after the strike shows the extent of the damage to the tent. According to reports, 1 journalist was killed and 9 others were wounded. Israel has regularly denied targeting journalists and said, oops, go back a sec.
Yep.
That went a little too fast.
No more?
Israel has regularly denied targeting journalists and says it takes steps to avoid hitting civilians.
Yeah, bullshit.
It resumed its operation in Gaza with a series of heavy airstrikes on the 18th of March and sent troops back in after a 2-month pause. So that's just a general description of what happened. So now let's get into more details. Thanks to friend of the show, Brett Wilkins. He'll be featured quite a bit tonight, I guess.
Yep.
So he reported via Common Dreams, how many more Israeli war crimes do we need to witness? Asked one Australian journalist. So Brett continues. Oops. Scores of Palestinians have been killed by Israel Defense Forces bombing of the Gaza Strip since Sunday, including numerous children as well as a journalist who was burned alive in a Monday strike targeting a tent full of sleeping journalists. The IDF strike on the journalist tent outside Nasir Hospital in Khan Yunis in southern Gaza at approximately 2 a.m. local time Monday killed Palestine Today reporter Hamil al-Fawaki and another man identified as Yusuf al-Khazander, both of whom burned to death as helpless bystanders tried but weren't able to rescue them from the flames. So there's a video, I am not going to show it because reasons.
Yeah.
But you get the picture, though. Saeed Mohammed Marandi tweeted, the harrowing footage shows Palestinian journalist Mahad Ahmad Mansour engulfed in flames after a Zionist regime airstrike deliberately targeted journalist tents near Nasir Hospital in Khan Yunis. Is there any humanity left in the West? Hashtag Gaza Holocaust. So
You got it?
Yep. Wasatem A. Dalul tweeted as well. Updates about journalist conditions after Israeli strike. Journalist Himil Fawaki was killed. Journalist Ahmad Mansour is suffering severe and critical burns and wounds. Hassan Slayeh is suffering from crushed fingers in his right hand and moderate head injuries. He is now in stable condition. All other journalists are okay. So we continue back to the article. The IDF said it carried out the strike in a bid to assassinate Elise, I guess, sorry, butchering the names, who was accused of being a member of Hamas Khan Yunis brigade posing as a journalist, partially because of the on-the-ground coverage of the October 7th, 2023 Hamas-led attack on Israel. Eslaya, who previously worked for the Associated Press and CNN, had repeatedly been threatened by Israel amid his tireless coverage of its annihilation of Gaza.
Yeah. Well, and we know that they've constantly called every journalist Hamas that they murdered. So it's just don't even listen to them at this point. Like, you shouldn't even have to say those statements. That's, of course, they're going to say that. You know?
Right. So speaking of which, this is their response, the IDF's response on Twitter. The IDF and ISA struck the Hamas terrorist Hassan Abdel Fattah Mohammed Asil in the Khan Yunis area overnight. Asil, who operates under the guise of a journalist and owns a press company, is a terrorist operative in Hamas's Khan Yunis brigade. On October 7th, he infiltrated Israeli territory and participated in Hamas's murderous massacre. Asil documented and uploaded footage of looting, arson, and murder to social media. Prior to the strike, numerous steps were taken to mitigate harm to civilians, including the use of precise munitions, aerial surveillance, and additional intelligence. We will continue to operate to remove any threat to the state of Israel. And as you said,
why the fuck you lying? Why you always lying?
Yep.
Oh my God.
The latest attack on journalists by Israel, which has killed well over 200 media professionals since October 2023, grew global condemnation and calls for U.S. corporate media to give more coverage to Israeli targeting of media professionals. This is not the first time Israel has targeted a tent sheltering journalists in Gaza. The international community's failure to act has allowed these attacks on the press to continue with impunity, undermining efforts to hold perpetrators accountable, said Sarah Kudar, the Middle East and North Africa director at the Community to Protect Journalists. CPJ calls on authorities to allow the injured, some of whom have sustained severe burns, to be evacuated immediately for treatment and to stop attacking Gaza's already devastated press corps. The Council on American Islamic Relations said in a statement, "We call for all U.S. media outlets to air the video of journalists burning alive in their media tent after Israel's government's bombing." They're not going to do that.
No.
And even just as an aside, I checked on mainstream media. The most I saw, if anyone reported on it at all, was around 30 seconds, if that.
Yeah.
So again, shout out to Brett for doing a little more extensive reporting on this story. But obviously mainstream media is not, well, they might, but they're not going to report it in the way that they probably should.
No.
So anyway, journalists must be the first in line to expose the intentional mass murder of fellow journalists, and the American people must be able to see the horror perpetrated in Gaza with American weapons and taxpayer dollars. CARE added, "We call on every state and national association of journalists to condemn the Israeli government's bombing of a media tent in Gaza and express solidarity with the Palestinian journalists facing targeted assassination for just doing their jobs. So this is from Antoinette Tafut. She is an Australian journalist. Oops. Did I skip? Yep. Who tweeted, "I feel physically ill. How are images of Palestinian journalists being burned alive not top story on every news site? This is after we watched the execution of paramedics. How many more Israeli war crimes do we need to witness? Or have we accepted our institutions and their so-called values are a lie?" Monday strikes following Sunday bombing that killed dozens of Palestinians, including strikes on the Al-Tufa neighborhood of Gaza City, that reportedly left 11 Palestinians, including 9 children, unalived and many others wounded. Other deadly IDF air and artillery strikes were also reported in cities including Khan Yunis and Deir al-Jabbar. These attacks included an airstrike on a community kitchen in Khan Yunis that killed 7 people, at least 3 of whom were reportedly children.
Yep.
So, again, I'm not going to show the video. This is a video. I'm not going to show it. Again, reasons.
Yeah, YouTube wouldn't like that very much.
But you get the point. That child is no longer with us. So I Am Palestine reported, a father bids farewell to his daughter who was unalived in the airstrike that targeted a group of children in Al-Tufa neighborhood in Gaza. You brought this for me, I believe.
Yep.
So this is from Hossam Shabbat. This is the guy who was killed.
Yes, I'd love to know who's
he was injured.
Running this account since then.
Right.
So, because he is no longer with us, Hossam Shabbat.
Right.
So,
right.
But
he was killed last week. Yes. He was killed last week.
Correct.
So,
yeah.
But tweeted, Al Jazeera cameraman Mahmoud Awad was injured as a result of the occupation's shelling of a journalist's tent near the Nasir medical complex. I think this is new because I didn't see this.
But I just feel like it shows exactly what happened, and people do need to see that a bit in a way that they can actually process, that isn't just a snuff film, So, yeah. I mean, I think they called it forced immolation.
Sure.
This particular one. So, but yeah, this is what I brought from Surrey Design 2. So,
we're going to listen to this guy. This is Alon Mizrahi. There's a clip to this, but I'll read what he said on Twitter first. No ambassador was called home from Tel Aviv. No condemnation was issued. No ruling was respected. No legal proceeding was allowed beyond the point of tokenistic international law. No reception was canceled. No contract was nulled. No arms shipment was called off. No cooperation was suspended. No critical piece was aired or printed. No UNSC resolution was allowed to pass. No General Assembly session was scheduled. No criminal was arrested. No ambassador was called home.
Yep.
So let's play what he said. Yes, please.
They have seen all of it. They have seen everything that we have seen. Every member of every parliament, every journalist, every international judge and institution and agency, every PM, every president, every king, every counselor, they have seen everything that we have seen. They have seen all of it. They have seen the dismembered children. They have seen them under the rubble, dead and sometimes alive. They have seen it with their own eyes. They have seen everything that we have seen. They have seen the children bleeding and dying on hospital floors. They have seen the parents holding their dead babies. They have seen families exterminated to the last member. They have seen the broken communities. They have seen the burned and bombed hospitals. They have seen UN shelters being destroyed. They have seen cemeteries being razed. They have seen all of it. They have seen people in tents being burned alive in their hundreds and thousands. They have seen everything that we have seen and brought us to the brink of not wanting to live anymore. Because we are normal and this is the normal reaction to what we see. And they have seen all of it with us. They are watching it with us. And they say nothing. They say nothing and they continue to stand with Israel. Every member of every parliament, from New Zealand to Australia to Canada to the US to Britain to Spain to Portugal to Belgium to Greece to Turkey to every Muslim and Arab country, they have seen everything that we have seen and they say nothing. They say nothing and they continue to support Israel. They continue to stand with the genocide. And we need to remember that because this tells us everything we need to know about how broken, about how irreparably, fundamentally broken our international political system is. How corrupt and broken this is. When the whole world and all the people with all the political power watch the same images and videos as we do and say nothing and do nothing and continue to support Israel. This should tell us everything we need to know about this world that we live in, this political system that we live in. This is the most shameful humanity has ever been, ever. There was never this kind of event, of catastrophe, being displayed to all of humanity and all the people with the power to stop it, condemn it, say nothing, and continue to support the genocide. This tells us all that we need to know.
Free Palestine!
I mean, good work from Elon there. I think that's how you pronounce that, right?
I think so, yeah.
Marazi? Marazi?
Mizrahi.
That's it. Why do I always get that wrong? Names, I apologize. But yeah, agreed. So, and it feels like no one in power is willing to even get close to doing anything. So,
Yep.
but
shout out to Robert Imichet, who tweeted about this as well. Israel bombed a tent full of journalists at the Nasir hospital. The video showing one of the journalists slowly burning is horrific. Yes, Israel targeted journalists at a hospital, but don't expect Western condemnation or accurate reports about it on the spineless media.
Yep.
As we are seeing. So, Mawal Osman also tweeted, Israel burned civilians alive again. This time was a journalist. There is an HD video of this act of terrorism. Again, you will scroll past it. Again, the genocide continues and you all are complicit.
Yep.
So going back to Brett, just to give a little more context. So on Monday, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu arrived in the United States from Hungary for talks with Trump and others on topics including Gaza, the hostages held by Hamas, Iran policy, and the 17% tariff Trump imposed on Israel last week, even though the country, which counts the U.S. as its biggest trade partner, lifted all levies on American imports in a bid to avert the move. So Bibi was in town, my town, on Monday.
Yep.
So, so obviously no one was going to say shit about any of this at all.
Yep.
Including Trump himself. But let's get into the weeds as to, I mean, we really don't want to hear what BB has to say, but we're going to be fair.
I won't be. He clearly wouldn't be fair to us.
Right. But let's see what he has to say regarding, well, anything.
Yeah.
You could play the whole
Netanyahu.
Israeli PM Benjamin Netanyahu departed for his visit to Washington D.C. to meet with Trump on April 6th.
Yay!
Speaking about his visit, Netanyahu stated that tariffs and the Gaza situation are going to be the key agendas in the high-stakes meeting.
Okay.
I am finishing a very important visit in Hungary. Hungary is a very good friend of Israel that defends us in the European Union and in the United Nations, and moreover defends us in front of the corrupt International Criminal Court at The Hague that targets us all, including Israeli soldiers, commanders, and is trying to take away our right to defend ourselves. Hungary is the first country to resign from the ICC. It is a sign of more to come and a great help to Israel. We spoke about cooperating in regards to military armaments that we need in order to press on and achieve complete victory in the Seven Front Army. And of course, we also spoke about the Hungarian hostage, Omri Moran, and various important subjects to the state of Israel. I depart to the United States to meet with President Trump to discuss, of course, matters on the hostages and completing the victory in Gaza, and of course on the tariffs imposed on Israel as well. I hope I can help with that, of course. I can tell you that I am the first international leader that is meeting with Trump in regards to such an important issue to the Israeli economy. There is a long line of international leaders waiting to meet with Trump in regards to their economies. I think it shows the personal connection and the connection between our countries that is so essential in this time. I ask, of course, to send my personal reinforcement to the hostage families that have experienced once again the psychological propaganda. We think of their loved ones and we act as we speak for their release, and we will not let go, so help us God.
אני חושב שזה משקף את הקשר האישי המיוחד והקשר המיוחד בין ארצות הברית וישראל, שהוא כל כך חיוני בזמן הזה. אני מבקש כמובן למסור...
Fall down. Fall down the stairs. Fall down those stairs. Come on, fall down.
Hello?
Shit. Ugh.
So something you may not know, just to give you a little bit more context before we end this segment. So go back.
Yeah, I'm going.
A second.
I clicked wrong. My apologies.
The Israeli newspaper Haaretz reported that Netanyahu's aircraft deviated from the normal Budapest-Washington, D.C. route by about 250 miles to avoid the airspace of the Netherlands, Ireland, and Iceland, which officials feel could enforce arrest warrants issued last year by the ICC against the Prime Minister for alleged war crimes and crimes against humanity in Gaza, including using starvation as a weapon of war, which you talked about in one of your segments last week.
Yep.
Far-right Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban and Trump have both rejected the warrants, and the latter has sanctioned the ICC. So
yes, we
basically
just dismiss the Hague. That's what we do.
Right.
That's a
So
smart
essentially,
move.
then Netanyahu had to take a longer flight to avoid getting into the countries that would arrest him on account of what he's doing at Gaza. That bastard, and just kind of goes to show the fecklessness of everyone else in the world who are not willing to follow suit. But yeah. Again, shout out to Brett. Thank you for his. Thank him for his reporting.
I think that ICJ stuff is still ongoing, if I'm not mistaken. So
yeah, but I haven't really heard anything.
No, I've heard Sam Husseini talk about it has major implications if it continues, and that like there's partially it puts the onus on other countries, I do believe, that are like complicit, and those countries could then get taken to court as well. You know, it's like precedent setting mainly, you know. So but yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'd like it to do something too. We've not seen it as far as anything that would do anything soon on that. So, but would be nice if, you know, karma was real and it came back to haunt people. That would be great. Or if ghosts were real, you have to imagine that like there'd be some people haunting all of Israel, right? You know?
Yeah.
But I don't know. You know, all we get is gaslight. So, well, I guess that's enough. But
look at the gaslight.
No, I will not. I don't know. Any closing thoughts for you? I mean, I feel like it's just another. Yay, more journalists are dead. Israel killed them. No consequences.
Yeah.
So, you know, we'll at least have it down here for posterity. So, you know, when the next thing happens and they try to claim a new Holocaust has happened to them, you'll be like, well, before then, all this stuff was happening. So, you know, which we do frequently with October 7th. So we'll get into that later. But, yep. Terrible stuff, as always, from that region.
Right.
But
I mean, obviously, well, this story wasn't really reported at all. So we decided, thank you for the lane, but we're demonetized because of it. So if you guys want to help support us in covering more stories like these, and especially to highlight independent journalists who are actually doing the work that are not corrupted by mainstream media, you can go to the QR code that you see on your screen, or you can type in the website that you see at the bottom of that screen there. Or if you in the YouTube chat and you type in !donate, all one word, the Ko-fi link will pop up. You can go to that link and give as much money as you're able. If you're don't want to do it through Ko-fi, we do have CashApp. We do have CashApp, PayPal, and Substack alternatives as well. Those links are in the description below if you want to check those out, if you want to donate that way as well. That being said, we're trying to work out, like, through any of those systems, if you give that, you get a cute little thing on screen. That only works with Ko-fi, so that's really the only benefit you get from Ko-fi. You see your donation on the screen. However, we don't expect everyone to give. We would like you to, but you understand that times are tough right now. So the best way you can help us, and really, truly, is to like, share, and subscribe to our content to help us fight the suppression that we see on YouTube. And make sure you leave a comment. We do read them. And help us get to 3K. We're almost at 2,500, I believe. So let's try and shoot for, 3K, maybe even over the summer.
That'd be good.
Maybe.
I'd take it.
Perhaps.
Mayhaps.
Help us out. Get us a little closer to 10. I'm not sure what that will do given that we're demonetized, but whatever.
Yep.
And thank you guys for watching.